So I think it will surprise no one here, given Steffi's energy, that she ran straight up that mountain.
Hilary, you want to start with a short video, right?
Yes, so let me introduce what I'm going to share with you. So my name's Hilary Mason. I actually first came to DLD in 2010 when I was the chief scientist of Bitly, which was social media links across the internet. And then again, when I was building a company called Fast Forward Labs, where we did applied machine learning product development. And so I've been building products in the space of what is now generative AI for a very long time. And I'm really excited to share what we're doing at Hidden Door with everyone here, because it's a little bit different than some of what we've been hearing about. So Hidden Door is like a Netflix for interactive fan experiences. So as you can imagine, coming and playing a game inspired by the dynamics of something like Dungeons and Dragons in the worlds you already love. And if you're somebody who reads a book or you watch a movie and you just keep thinking about it, this is for you. And right now we see that fan energy going into communities, into chat, into fan fiction, into Reddit debates. But that energy exists, and it's existed for some time. And so with Hidden Door, we partnered directly with the authors, the creators, and we bring those worlds to life for their fans. And we have a few tricks that have become possible because of the technology. They are that it takes us only a few hours to bring a world to life on the platform. And I'm happy to show that to you all. It's also that we have players able to have infinite adventures, but those adventures are controllable by the original creator of the world. So if you're someone who does that world building, you have rules, you have characters who must behave in a certain way, you have laws of physics that must be enforced. You have feelings and vibes that you want your world to emerge. Maybe there's a lot of death, maybe there's no death. Maybe I had one author say to me, in my world, when people die, they bleed out of their eyeballs. Can you make that? I'm like, yes. And so it's controllable. It is not like plugging into ChatGPT. It's a different architecture that gives us that ability to control. And then the last trick is that when fans play, they're daydreaming, we can give the creators some insight into the ways that their fans want to engage in their worlds, which characters they want to interact with, what kinds of plots they want to see. And that's what we're doing at Hidden Door. So if we can please have the video, I'll show you what one version looks like, and then we can talk about it. So what you're going to see here is that you come into the platform, you pick the world. We've adapted the Wizard of Oz from the public domain. You create a character. Every game has a character creation process. And then the players get to choose the shape of the story adventure they want to have, and they do this together. And this is a game, but it's like an improv game. It's not a game you win or lose. It's a game where you make decisions, and those decisions pull you forward. And you interact with this through language. And this is, for those of us who may have grown up in the choose your own adventure era, it's a little bit like that, but you can choose anything, you can type things in, and you have consequences to your actions. And even failure tends to be fun. It brings the story forward. And it's social. This is something you're doing with your friends. You're creating these creative moments together that you then might want to share. And the last thing I'll mention is as you play, you collect these cards that let you play new stories that open up really unique things. And it works in very different kinds of worlds, very different vibes. And that is what we're doing at Hidden Door.
That's exciting. Just a very simple question at the beginning. How did you come up with the name?
That is a very good question. We started this company 4 years ago, knowing there was something really intriguing in the capability of what the technology was making possible in gaming, in fan energy. And we wanted a name that evoked the mystery, that evoked that possibility. And my co-founder, Matt, who's in the back somewhere, actually came up with the name, so he deserves the credit. But it was as much for us at that moment trying to discover what it could be as it was for everyone who hears the name to think, I wonder what's behind that door.
Yeah, exciting. Look, let's maybe start with sort of 30,000 feet flight height. What do you think the share of media and entertainment consumption will your solution Hidden Door or your gaming platform Hidden Door, sort of comprise when you say there's 100% of a user's time? What do you think? Where is this today, and where will this land?
So of course, we're talking here about sort of the industry and the economics of how we think about interactive media. And right now we live in a world where book publishing is one universe, film is another universe, gaming is a third. And I will say it has surprised me a little bit to be back here at DLD and to see that, frankly, to hear people say things like, oh, my kids play games, but it's still not held to the same level. But gaming is economically 4 times the size of the film industry today. And so if we think about what it means, because as a person, do we really care that one is a book, one is a TV show, one is a movie, one is a game? It is being able to think about what that transmedia experience of loving the creative world, the thing that someone has made that you appreciate and wanting to experience it. Sometimes you want to go out to the movies, sometimes you want to watch something, sometimes you want to be active and have your own direction. And so I think that this is an impulse that pretty much everyone who daydreams shares, and that we will inevitably see more of this mixing of different kinds of media.
And I think the interesting thing that sort of, obviously your technology that is AI powered, obviously provides, is that, a consumer moves to a prosumer at the end of the day, right? From a player to a creator and player.
Yes.
That is sort of the interesting thing. And do you think that this is sort of a trend that also makes, obviously, your consumers or your players more sticky with your sort of platform? Is that fair to say?
I think so, and this happens today. Like, there are tremendous fan fiction communities. If you go onto Roblox, which if you have a middle schooler, you are probably familiar with, and otherwise perhaps not, you will see unlicensed games created out of this. And so we see this very much as a way for fans to stay engaged in the work. So if you are a writer, you've written a book, it is a tremendous effort. You've done a ton of world building and work to create that. And this is a way to take your community and move them from just that mode of consumption, and then I'm done and on to the next, to being engaged, to being active, to really creating a relationship. So yes, we think it is pretty engaging.
And there's also obviously a lot of talk around sort of the impact of generative AI on gaming, in particular on sort of the non-playable characters, right? So how do you think this is sort of going to change? How is sort of the gaming industry actually sort of changing from, in particular, when you think about sort of the non-playable sort of characters, they suddenly speak to you, and then you have obviously your friends playing with you as well.
Absolutely, and I'm going to answer this going a little bit back in time to my role advising executives on how to use machine learning over many years, because we always see 2 phases of thinking this through. The first is, what am I currently paying money for that I can use the technology to reduce the cost? And that's mostly what we're seeing across many industries today with generative AI. So essentially, like, how do I get rid of paying pesky writers? And I don't care if the output is mediocre, but that's sort of where a lot of the thinking is. But once you get through that, you start to think about, okay, what experiences become possible that were never possible before because of the affordances of this technology? And we're starting to see some of that. And I think, as you mentioned, there's a lot of energy around NPC or non-player character interactions in games. But I think a lot of that comes from the fairly naive viewpoint of drawing on chat as the dominant interface to generative AI that people are exposed to. And I personally think it's a terrible interface, to sort of think about, like, oh, well, this whole game might stay the same, but I'm going to have a different conversation with this one character. Like, that's not actually a deeply compelling experience. And so I would say that that is step 1 towards discovering these new kinds of experiences. And I don't have an answer to what they are. I don't think anyone does. I think it's the most exciting time in the gaming industry because we're at that moment where you can start to invent it or start to figure it out. But I can promise that we will see something interesting and many different forms of games that just couldn't have been designed before over the next few years.
And do you think sort of that the way sort of you approach the gaming industry, and some obviously others do too, is this going to disrupt the gaming industry we know?
I think it will, and I think it will because the people who are best positioned to take advantage of these opportunities are not the existing large studios who are extremely invested in the current model, where it typically takes 3 years, maybe more, millions of dollars, hundreds of people to ship a game. And that game is shipped through a publisher and onto one of a small set of platforms. And that game has to ship with all of the content pre-written. So I don't know how many people in this room actually play games, but I've been playing a game called Baldur's Gate 3. You have this illusion in this game that you can do anything, but really every player has the same story arc. That story arc was pre-written. What we start to see now is that you don't actually have to pre-write anything. And we see that extend into art assets or 3D assets as well. And so, again, there's a lot to come. I don't know what it will look like, but I think it will come from people who are not constrained by the existing publication models or the existing just companies and teams built around creating things as they have always been done.
Picking on constraints, that's actually maybe a good point as well. How do you think about sort of computing power? I mean, that there's a lot of sort of talk that there's obviously, this might be the limiting factor here. And obviously the gaming industry and also AI in particular, or AI-powered sort of games are in particular.
Yes, it's a great question, and it's one that every investor always asks us because they, essentially they want to know, are we lighting GPUs on fire?
Yeah.
But it's important for anyone who is thinking of building something around this technology. And the answer is that for us, no. In fact, we've used and developed a system where we actually pre-generate much of the content in a generic, you can think of it like a fractal combinatorial trope engine, and what we do is contextualize it in the moment with the rules of the world, all that stuff. And this is a long way of saying that there are ways, depending on the product and the needs of the experience, to actually build very compute-efficient products that use generative AI. But it's much easier just to plug in someone's API, which is also generally a bad idea if you're building a business to depend on someone else's API.
Good. What do you sort of when we sit here in a year's time? What do you think has happened in the gaming industry, and also sort of to Hidden Door? What's the ambition for the next 12 months?
Well, for Hidden Door, we are working with several authors and bringing other folks onto the platform. We're currently in closed alpha. If anyone wants to try it, let me know, or sign up at our website, say you were here. We want to see what players do. We really want to see where they take their worlds, because with these games, there is no pre-written ending. They can really transform their version of the world within the constraints and the rules. In the gaming industry broadly, I would love to see the conversation mature in, I'll say, two directions. One of which is understanding that games are part of media and entertainment, and that consumers do not necessarily draw lines between, I read a book that I loved, and now I'm playing a game. And sometimes games might be a sort of a second-class opportunity, but I think it will become a first-class opportunity. And games of many different kinds. And then on the technical side, I would love to see the conversation mature beyond essentially, how do I better exploit my writers and artists, to one of, how do we create these experiences that our customers are going to expect from us? Like, how do we create that magic and those sort of, positive experiences that give people the kind of fictional immersion they really want. And it just takes time and people to invent things that other people can build off of. But I think a year from now, we'll see that.
And how global in nature is sort of a business like yours? How do you sort of roll out your business beyond sort of the States?
That's another great question, because gaming is global, and in fact, the United States and even the United States and Europe is not the biggest market for gaming. In fact, Asia is the largest growing gaming market, and in fact has a much higher, many more narrative games are very successful in that market. And so it is being aware that this can work everywhere. In our case, our architecture allows us to easily add in other kinds of languages or other kinds of plots or different kinds of cultural values as we bring those properties on board. And so while we are currently English only, we plan to very quickly expand and to see where the creativity takes us.
Maybe we close with a last question, Hilary. What's the next in gaming?
So the next in gaming broadly, I think, is that what this technology gives us is, as I said, you do not have to pre-write or pre-create the entire experience before you ship it. The experience someone sees can be created at the moment they see it. And so what does that give us? Well, it gives our players, our consumers, a lot more control. It gives them the ability to direct. It gives them the ability to do things that we, as the game designer, may never have thought of. And it also, makes things a little bit more efficient. And so I think one thing, I've heard it here and I've seen it myself, the ability to run these kinds of models is currently somewhat constrained, but we will be running them on phones, on microcontrollers, and so you can think about the experiences you can have there. You also think about the ability for people who otherwise were just receiving, consuming, to become creative within those structures, and then what emerges there, what the community becomes around this. So I think we will see, and this is the world I very much want to live in, one in which games are community-driven, they're social, they're creative spaces where people are able to direct what they want to see out of it while also engaging and respecting and paying the original creators of the things they love.
That's a great closing remark. Hilary, thank you so much for coming all the way to Munich, and best of luck with Hidden Door.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.